Today on Sugar Spun Run, I'll be showing you how to make a chocolate chess pie. Hey Sugar Spun Bakers, Sam here, and today I am so excited to be sharing another carefully tested, well-researched, and perfected recipe. If you've never had a chocolate chess pie before, I want you to know that it's kind of like a super fudgy, almost custardy brownie in a pie crust. It is absolutely amazing. If you are a chocolate lover like I am, you're gonna go crazy over this one. So let's go ahead and get started. Now before you begin, you'll want to get your oven preheated to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. For today's recipe, you're going to need a 9-inch pie plate, and you're also going to need a pie crust. I recommend, of course, using my homemade pie crust, which I have linked to in the printable recipe. But if you don't have the time to make one, you could substitute a store-bought crust instead. Just don't recommend it. So I've already prepped, rolled out my pie, and trimmed up the edges, but I wanted to show you a couple things before I blind bake this in my pie plate. Now we are going to just flute the edges, which is really simple to do. I'm gonna show you with how I use my fingers on both of my hands, just to make this pretty fluting pattern. And then after you've fluted all of the edges, one thing I like to do is go back and just kind of press those indents into the edge of my pie plate a little bit. What this does is it just helps keep it from shrinking too much when it's in the oven, which pie crusts are really prone to shrinking. So as I mentioned, we are going to pre-bake this crust a little bit, not completely, but we want to give it a head start. That way it's not soggy after we add our filling. Now to do this, just lay a piece of parchment paper inside the pie crust, and then we're going to add some pie weights, just enough to cover the bottom. We'll take this over to our preheated oven where it's going to need to bake for just 15 minutes. Now, while that is baking, we can go ahead and prepare our chocolate chess pie filling. Now, in a heat-proof bowl, you're going to want to combine 1/3 cup of unsalted butter, and that's 5 1/3 tablespoons, in case you're wondering what a 1/3 cup of butter looks like. We'll be melting this in a second, so to help make the process nice and quick, I like to cut this into about 5 pieces before I do that. Next, you are going to need 4 ounces of semi-sweet or dark chocolate. I am using 60% chocolate today. And if you wanted to make your melting process nice and quick, you could finely chop this, but I don't feel like getting out my cutting board or another knife, so I'm just going to break this into pieces. And I do recommend that you use a chocolate bar rather than use chocolate chips. It's just going to give the pie a better flavor and texture when it's finished. All right, let's take this over to our microwave, and we're just going to heat it in 25 to 30-second increments, stirring in between until both the butter and chocolate are melted and the mixture is nice and smooth. This looks pretty much perfect, so we can set this aside, and now grab yourself a separate mixing bowl. And in this, we are going to combine 1/4 cup of heavy whipping cream, 2 large eggs, and then in addition to the 2 large eggs, we are also going to be adding 2 large egg yolks, just the yolks. And just the easiest way to separate your eggs is just to crack it and then pass that yolk back and forth until the white has fallen out, and then you have your egg yolk. Okay, so we have our cream, our 2 eggs, our 2 egg yolks, and we're also going to be adding 1 1/4 cups of granulated sugar and 1 1/2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Now, with a chocolate chess pie, one of its hallmark features is a nice crackly top, and to get this top nice and crackly, one of the key things you can do is beat this mixture really well. Take a whisk, or you could even use an electric mixer, but that's not really necessary, and we're just going to vigorously mix this for about 15 to 20 seconds. Right, the next thing that you need is a little bit more chocolate. We are going to be using 1/4 cup of cocoa powder. You can use either natural or Dutch processed cocoa powder, whichever you happen to have on hand. Now, my cocoa powder always tends to have little lumps in it, so I recommend running this through a sifter or a fine mesh strainer, as I'm doing here, and just working the cocoa powder through there. That way you don't have any lumps. See how many are in there? I don't want those in my pie. Now we'll also add 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and we are just going to stir everything together until this mixture is nice and smooth. My spatula is making a mess, so I'm just going to use my whisk, just whisk everything together. Okay, nice and smooth. Now grab your chocolate mixture, which has had a little bit of time to cool, and we are going to just pour that, your melted chocolate mixture I should say, because we have 2 of them now. We'll just pour that in to our cocoa powder mixture. Now stir everything together until it's combined. You don't need to really whip it at this point. We're just going to gently stir until we have a nice smooth batter. So by this point, your pie crust from earlier should be finished. Maybe it even finished a couple minutes ago. Let's take a look at that real quickly. As you can see, the edges of mine have started to turn a very light golden brown, but that's it. We'll use our parchment paper to carefully lift those pie weights out of there, and be careful because they still might be hot, so be careful when you're removing them. And our pie crust is not baked completely. That's completely fine. It'll finish baking while it's in the oven with our filling. So let's add our chess pie filling into our pie crust. And before we take this over to our oven, you're going to want to turn your oven down to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're just knocking it down 25 degrees. Now let's carefully take this over to our oven where it's going to need to bake for about 25 to 30 minutes. All right, let's take a look at this pie after 25 minutes in the oven. You can see it's got this nice crackly top. That's puffed up a lot while it's baked. It's going to sink and crack. We have one pretty nice looking crack in there already, but we'll get a couple more as it cools and settles. One thing I want to show you is if I jiggle this pie and wiggle it back and forth, the center is pretty much set. It doesn't look like Jello, it's set. You'll want to let this pie cool completely before you dig in. Usually that takes about 4 to 6 hours. So fortunately, I have a pie that I made last night that we can go ahead and cut into right now. I just love that crackly top. It's like really good brownie, you know what I mean? And that is how you make chocolate chess pie. I hope you guys enjoyed this super easy recipe. I really can't wait for you to try this one out and let me know what you think. I always love hearing from you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. See how chocolatey that is? This is so good.